Thank you. I think it is time to switch into questions from the audience, and I immediately see one question from our friend from Turkey.
Thank you. First, I have the one criticizing to the banks in Latvia from my personal experience as a foreigner having the residence here. When I went to the one bank to open an account. We always say that the banks are more developed technology they are using. We suppose like that. But when I went to the one bank, they say that to opening an account take 2 weeks for the foreigner. From that, I would like to go to another questions, because we know that our time is the community. For a country is the community. Let's say Facebook is a community. Whatever we call like that, it is a community. So if we suppose that Latvia is a community, a social media, let's say, to understand them more easily, because the generation are changing. And they are more get used to using new products. Let's say that fintech products, they are more easy to understand blockchains, let's say, and bitcoins. And when the Google, Facebook, or such a big companies, worldwide companies, decide to enter the financial market, how the Latvian banks feel about that? Are they really for that big competition? Because this technology where it takes us. Because some years, until a few years ago, the Google just was maybe like the search engine, but now they are everywhere. When there is, because during the forum there was the one question: what about the world currency? It seems like a little fantastic. But when the Google and Facebook enters into that market, being a fintech player, then how they will feel the Latvian banks? Are they really such a really big competitions? I would like to make one addings. Already they are, in fact, already they are in the that finance, because we know that.
You can continue.
Okay, thank you. Already we know that Google are already in the finance, because with the AdWords and AdSense, they are getting the payment, or they are paid the people. So it is not a fantastic idea to enter in fintechs.
Great. So we'll probably divvy up the questions. I'll take the first one on the opening the accounts. I think this is actually one of these developments, as one of the colleagues here mentioned, on the Know Your Client regulations that apply to all. In fact, it's a common EU-wide and in fact worldwide phenomenon that the banks are checking on the client and deciding whether they will onboard the client or not with all the obligations. So that takes time. And I think whether you take London or in fact Washington or New York, it is increasingly difficult for new clients to get onboarded with the banks that they've not worked previously. That is indeed the reality. And add to that the fact that the Latvian banks have been reviewing their client base and with the more stringent anti-money laundering regulations and the standards that we've introduced to deal with the inherent risks that the country faces being located where it is located, and that we want to make sure that the global move of 1 to 2 trillion of bad money does not approach anywhere near the Latvian banking sector. So that's the result of this. And so, if you look at how this can develop, like it or not, at some level, having a banking relationship for a company will be something that one wants to maintain. because the way the global, and we're not talking of the Latvian or the EU regulation, but the way the global standards are working, one can see that maybe in the coming 5, 7, 10 years, if a company will not be really known in any of the global databases and its activities can be fully traced and tracked, it will be increasingly difficult to get back. But that's that side. So once you're onboarded, the service should be seamless.
Google and Facebook, briefly, and by the way, it's very nice and very romantic now for you guys. Google and Facebook, of course, this is a big concern for banks if they go really big when it comes to financial services. Apple has tried out, General Electric historically has tried out. We don't see this as a major success. And again, there are a lot of reasons, and I could make a very long list why it is difficult to be a bank. And it is even difficult to issue cards and attract deposits, not to speak about loans and all that. So there is this church tower principle from medieval times that is very much alive. But again, I would compare this to news agencies. When internet was kind of advancing, everyone was saying, well, nobody would read local news, all would disappear, there would be no newspapers, no local news channels whatsoever. The truth is somewhere in between. It's not black or white, it's many shades of gray in between. We see fewer local news media out there. We see that more people are kind of switching to, I don't know, New York Times or something else, but there is still some local content. For banks, it might be something similar. But of course, it remains a big unknown and big question mark. If Google decides or Facebook decides to go big after financial industry, we shall see. I'm quite humble on that one. I think they are quite smart. But then again, there are no good surprises neither for General Electric with all of their might. They tried to do this for the last 40 years or something. Apple has tried to do it for the last 10 years. Also, nothing huge comes out of it. So it remains to be seen.
Well, commenting the move of the larger information giants like Facebook and Google moving into financial sector, I think that under threat will immediately fall the companies like Revolut and N26, the bank, who are focusing on retail and high volume, small amount payments. So that's most likely be the first first victim of such move. But larger banks, which work primarily with corporate customers, and it's not something that will be immediately.
That the relations of business just mentioned will stay. And the way how to go out of it is one is just localize as much as possible. I know that one Latvian bank implemented second Latvian language in ATMs. Very good. I hope that Google is still not very strong in that. And the second part is just ask for the state protection. I'm really not sure that the Latvian government will manage that, but EU together can somehow do something.
So, talking about the Google story, so yes, I like it, but once again, the formula of a success, so it's time, information, money, and energy. So, but this formula losing one more point, it's also marketing. So, how successful you are on sales. If you are able to create the product, but you are not able to sell it, so there is no cost. So if you're creating the worst product, but you're good in sales, okay, you can sell it. So if you're creating the good product, but you're worse on marketing, so you're still able to sell it, but it's smaller business. So as you were saying here, so the Google was exactly in time. The all businesses was searching for information, and the internet became like one single place. There is all information is located, but you doesn't have the tools how to search it. They find proper time and proper point how to provide the sources what the people was asking, and it's always the cost. The people are looking for sources. They need sources. If you can provide them, okay, you are winning. This is the key of success. Time. Time and service in time.
Great. Any other question?
Süleyman Şahin from Turkey, but in Latvia. There will be questions, but I will make a little compression with 2 years ago because there was the similar meeting at Riga.com again. Again, the subject was the banks versus fintechs versus blockchains and the cryptocurrencies. 2 years ago, banks still were discussing what three could be for them, and fintechs were totally different, but that time blockchain came. That time banks were very against the blockchains, and I asked one question that time. There was the 3 bank top-level manager and bank association and one top-level manager from the Victoria. I asked the question, if Google, Facebook, Twitter comes and create their own currency. What happened? Facebook announced their own currency. Now, normally when we talk about the threats against the risk against the banks and the fintechs, I think that in this panel we didn't talk about the real risk for both sides. So I would like to hear that their opinions, how they get prepared for that risk. Because even now the globalization is in the risk, but big companies are pushing to make the one currency, or at least a field currency. One question is that for the banks and for fintech companies, how they are getting prepared for this. The other question for Mr. Martin, because 2 years ago I have interviewed with the economy minister of Latvia. Again, that time the subject was the same. There was no any regulations, and that time the government didn't know what to do again. But still, it seems that in that point, still same. But at least Mr. Martin's views is very open, and he says that just as I understand, and they want to belong to the fintech companies. So how they are getting prepared for the real threats, for the big companies coming from the other countries like the Facebook, Google, and how they will survive.
This is an interesting question about this currency.
Again, I started the famous FAGA. If you think about what Facebook did now with the currency, they're not going that much against the banks. They're going against the central bank. I think on one of the discussion together with the Bank of Latvia, we were already touching on this point, because the biggest threat which comes from Facebook launching the currency is actually eliminating another middleman, which is the central banks from the economies, which putting into the risk the financial system. The question whether the governments will be ready for these things to happen, and we see a lot of pushback on the regulatory level of these things going to happen. We see also the financial institution, which one by one jumping out of the project of the Facebook Libra. So whether it is sustainable, time will show. Technology itself, it's getting there. I think it's capable to help us facilitate different type of the transaction in more secure way. I would say it's alternative for central banks to think about alternative to cash, which is digital cash. Because if you think what blockchain will allow us, it will allow us to eliminate the paper, keep the confidentiality, and make the cash digital. So coming back to the FAGA threat toward the banks and fintechs, to be honest, I think that it comes with the trust, and I partially said it into my previous comments, and we were discussing the difference between banks and fintechs, and same applies to FAGA. If you are in the position to trust your entire money to Facebook, would you ever do that? Would you ever go and put all your entire savings into the company which is global, which operates with the data, which makes this data publicly available, and you will run your primary account and you continue to step in this space. So I think a lot of people will say no for now. The question, can you turn this page around and build this trust? And so far, I think none of these institutions were capable to come to the situation that now I'm the primary provider of the financial services. That's what I want.
Robert, may you also answer about Facebook Libra?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting project, but as said previously, there's really a big, I mean, the biggest challenge I would say will be the adoption of such a currency in, well, basically all across the world, because now we have already heard that Germany and France have said that there will be no Libra coin in their countries, so I doubt that Facebook will go illegally to put out a coin, so crypto coin, and in countries that have said officially that they will not allow it, and some of the companies are already doubtful of the whole project, but generally speaking, I mean, global or region-wise currency that is digital might be a good thing, and it would definitely fight any anti-money laundering problems, because you can track the money, and with the cash, as mentioned previously, it's difficult to track cash, but when it's digital, it's there. So the concept is interesting, but I really doubt that Facebook is the best base to put on some privacy, and especially when it comes to people finance. So I think that will be the biggest challenge. I mean, I'm sure if you Google Facebook, even now, you will read about Cambridge Analytica and other scandals that they have had, and their CEO is constantly going to multiple committees to talk about the issues. So, I mean, with all this negative history, it might be really, really difficult for them to achieve, basically introduction of this coin.
Thank you. There's a lot of questions also, but we are running out of time, so we have to finish this and maybe meet